Okay guys, so we're going to be doing the quadratic formula, which is 4.6, so you're going to want to write all this down with me. Okay, so 4.6 quadratic formula. If I'm ever going too fast, just have the sub pause the video. Okay, so this is the quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to write that down, and I will leave these videos for the sub to go through with you. But you can go and during this time and watch the videos on how to sing the quadratic formula, and then we're going to of course sing it together when I come back. So you'll want to learn the song, and it goes x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this I will play some videos for you so you can practice singing it as well. Okay, so here's your first problem, and we are going to try to figure out where this crosses the x-axis by using the quadratic formula. So this is the parabola, so we're going to set it equal to 0. So you can factor most quadratics. You can do completing the square with all quadratics, but this is just another method other than completing the square. So the number in front of x squared is a, so a is 1, b is 5, and c is negative 126. So we're just going to plug all these numbers in the quadratic formula using parentheses. So x equals negative b, which is 5, plus or minus the square root of 5 squared. I'm just plugging it all in. So what you're going to do is you're going to write x equals negative 5. You're going to clean up each little section. So this is negative 5 plus or minus the square root all over 2. So I haven't put anything underneath the square root because I'm going to use my calculator to help me do the majority of this. So you're going to plug in your calculator from here to here exactly as you see it. So just exactly as you see it, parentheses 5, close your parentheses squared, make sure you use the squared. Minus sign 4, parentheses 1, close it, open it, negative 126, close. It's exactly as you see it. You do not plug in the square root. Now I gotta figure out what to say. Okay, so when I plugged in my calculator, I got 529. And then we have to deal with the square root of 529. First of all, you should see if that's a perfect square root by typing the square root of 529 in your calculator, which it is. So that's 23. So I'm going to write x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 529 is 23 all over 2. Remember, when you have a parabola, it should cross the x-axis twice, and both answers are in here, but we have to find both answers. So I'm going to split this up and write x equals negative 5 plus 23 divided by 2, and x equals negative 5 minus 23 divided by 2. So over here you have negative 5 plus 23, which is 18, divided by 2 is 9. So that's one answer, crosses the x-axis at 9. The other one, negative 5 minus 23 is negative 28, divided by 2 is negative 14. So those are your x-intercepts. That's where it crosses the x-axis. So this is the quadratic formula when you get two nice pretty answers. And now we're going to deal with not so pretty nice answers on the next one. Okay, so on this one, again, you set it equal to 0 because you're technically solving for the x-intercepts. A is 12, B is 12, C is negative 20. So you're going to plug each of those in the quadratic formula. So go ahead and write it all down and plug in your A, B, and your C. Okay, so x equals, clean this up, this would be negative 12. Plus or minus the square root of some number, all over 2 times 12, which is 24. So we're going to figure out what goes underneath the square root by typing from here to here in your calculator. Do not type in the square root. Make sure you include the squared. This is a minus sign. This is a negative. So go ahead and type that in. And you get negative, or no, just positive 1,104. 1,104, yeah. Okay, so try to do the square root of 1,104, and I get a decimal. That's not good. I don't want decimals, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root over on the side, and we're going to break it down like we used to. Haven't done it in a while. But you're going to break it down into all prime numbers. So I'm going to see what that is divided by 2, which is 552. And you can break it down however you want. And I get 2 and 276. And I just keep breaking it down until I find all my prime numbers. It's a big number. 269. So I get 3 and 23. So 23 is a prime number, so I can't break that down. But you want to find all your pairs. So I've got 4 2s, a 3, and a 23. So I have a pair of 2s, that's going to come out, I'm going to write it once. A pair of 2s, I'm going to bring that up, I'm going to write it once. So I'm going to have a 2 times a 2 with a 3 and a 23 left over. So that's going to be 4 square root 69. That's going to go back in place for that square root because I just simplified it. So I have x equals negative 12 plus or minus 4 square root 69 all over 24. Okay, so the last thing you can do is you're not going to be able to have 2 pretty answers with this one, so you're just going to simplify if possible. You have to look at this little triangle. All 3 numbers have to be reduced by the same number. You can't just reduce 2 of them, you have to reduce all 3 of them. So all 3 of these can be divided by 4. So I'm going to divide by 4, which will make that negative 3. Divide by 4, this will make it 1. Divide by 4, this will make it 6. So your answer is going to be negative 3 plus or minus. You don't have to include the 1 because it's being multiplied by 1. Square root of 69 all over 6. These cannot be reduced because you don't have a third number to reduce by. You have to have all 3. You never touch the square root of 69. So this is your final answer. So if you don't have a square root that's a perfect square root, you want to break it down off to the side and then throw it back in and simplify if possible. So these are real answers. We're now going to talk about imaginary numbers. Just kidding, we'll do one more. So this should be an x, and we are going to do the quadratic formula with this one. So I'm going to put everything on the same side before I even start. And the first two were already all on the same side. But for this one, we want to move everything onto the x squared side. It doesn't really matter what side you add it to, if you go this way or this way, as long as it's all on the same side. So I have 9x squared plus 10x plus 7 equals 0. A, B, C. So I'm going to plug in my numbers in the quadratic formula, and we're going to see what I get underneath the square root. So you're going to have negative 10 plus or minus the square root of some number all over 18. So remember, you do not plug in the square root. Make sure you include the squared and the minus sign. And you're going to get negative 152. Okay, so this is where we deal with the negatives. Okay, so if you take the square root of a negative number on your calculator, if you take the square root of negative 152, you're going to get a non-real answer. That's because this is not possible in the real world. So basically, anytime you have a quadratic, it should cross the x-axis twice, okay? But this one doesn't cross the x-axis that you can see. So it kind of is up here. So it's somewhere where it doesn't cross. It really does cross, but it doesn't cross this x-axis. It crosses the imaginary axis. And I'll talk to you guys more about that when I come back, but just trust me that it is, you can't see the roots, but there really are 2 roots. They're just imaginary. So what you do is you're still going to take the square root of negative 152 off to the side. And anytime you have the square root of a negative number, the square root of negative 1 is I. So all you're going to do is you're going to pull, this is how I teach it, you take the negative, pull it out, and make it an I on the outside. So you have I square root of 152. Now we're going to deal with the radical just as we used to. Just keep the I in the front because it's imaginary. That's all it says is, hey, it's an imaginary number. You can try to type in the square root of 152. It's not a perfect square root, so we're going to break it down. So 152 breaks down into, let's see, 152 divided by 2 is 76. And then 76 breaks down to 2 and 38. And 38 breaks down into 2 and 17. 19. And 19 is a prime number. So you have 3 2s and a 19 with the I in the front. The I just says it's imaginary. Pair of 2s, those are going to come out, and you're going to have 2I. Multiply the other, you get 38. That's going to go back in. So your answer is going to be x equals negative 10 plus or minus 2I square root 38 all over 18. So all it does is you just have an I, and these don't really cross the x-axis. You can see they cross the imaginary axis. Okay, so now you look at these three. Can those be reduced? Well, yeah, they can all be divided by 2. And you're going to have x equals negative 5 plus or minus I square root 38 all over 9. And that's your final answer, because I divided them all by 2. Okay, if you guys want to Google some ways that they use I in the real world, you totally can. I just don't have time to talk about it because I'm under a time limit. Okay, so this is your final answer. So, imaginary numbers are here where you can't see where they cross the x-axis, but they're imaginary. Okay. Okay, and let's go ahead and talk about this last one, and then we'll be done. You guys can work on your homework. So we have to put everything on the same side. You can move it to the left or you can move it to the right. So let's just kind of see what happens when you end up with a ton of negatives. So let me move the negative 7x to the right. I could have moved everything to the left as well, but I just want to show you guys what happens with negatives. So you have negative 7x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals 0. So A is negative 7, B is negative 5, and C is negative 1. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so right here you have two negatives, and of course we know it's going to turn into a positive. So a negative times negative is a positive, plus or minus the square root all over negative 14. So remember, you plug from here to here in your calculator. Don't include the square root, and make sure you include the squared. And let's see what we get. Negative 3. Okay, so now I'm going to take this square root off to the side of the square root of negative 3. The negative, the only thing you're going to do is pull it out and write it as an I, and then there's no negative underneath the square root, and you leave the square root of 3. I can't break that down any further, so my answer is x equals 5 plus or minus I square root 3 over 14. There's not three numbers we can reduce by, so this is our final answer. So to recap, when you do the quadratic formula, you can have nice two pretty answers like 7 and 3. You could have a number and a number like something like that. You would leave it like that. Or you could have imaginary answers, which just means you will have an I in your answer. You will never, ever have a negative underneath the square root for your final answer. You always pull it out and write it as an I. So these are the three types of problems you're going to see on your worksheet. You can ask the sub to look at the answer key. You can watch this video again. And I will see you guys when I return. Make sure you get all your missing work in. If you missed the quiz on Tuesday, you can take that during this class, or you can come in after school. But I have copies left for you guys. It's in the makeup folder that the sub has. So you can get everything turned in today. Make sure everything gets turned in. If you're concerned I won't get it, take a picture of it and email it to me, and I'll email you back when I get it.